Well, there's my new friend. That's the carbon copy of the pussycat, but actually that's one of her kittens. So we got all of the hollow blocks up here, but now we're run short of sand and we need it for laying down the floor and finishing off. Our storage unit. So this is my whole trick from backing out, as it seemed to work very well, just balancing. I just balanced the camera on the dash and took a chance. What can happen? It can only fall off, can't it? Oops. Oh, maybe that's better. Maybe that's better still. The camera slid down the dash. This is what used to be called a tunnel. Started by calling this a tunnel, and you see on the left, you can see how high the bank is. Looking at it now. It used to be like that all the way up, and before we built the bridge. Let's see if that works. So this is pretty well destroyed here because so much subsidence from the right hand side there, which I think you can probably see now. Look, that's pretty severe, and it all comes down, and it comes right down into, and guess what, into Julio's house, and we've diverted it. This is probably the most difficult part of the trip now because of all the heavy subsidence there on the right. The hill is that, well, that wall there is just collapsing. You can see very severe there on the right. And over here, there's not far to go. So all of this is done very gingerly, I can tell you, because it's so easy to side slip. We don't want to side slip down on the left there. And as soon as you put too much gas on, and speaking of too much gas, see, the back end is just coming around, and it's a narrow road. There's not that much space to go. And it's straightened up now. But this is the kind of scene that I love. the bags of ballast waiting to be picked up. But over there you've got the carabao, and the carabao's got his friend, a white heron. I don't know whether you can see it. Let me see if I can. Okay, you'll forgive the erratic zoom, but I can't actually see. I can't see what you're seeing. I can see a dark spot in the middle, which I take is the carabao, and then there's a smudge of white on the right there, and that's the carabao's friend, the white heron. You can see it better now. Oh, I love scenes like this. Very often you see the carabao placid and chewing on the grass, and the heron will be sitting on the carabao's back. See up there, look, all land. All land here is not all cultivated. It costs money to do it. And those are all those lines that you can see, those horizontal lines going left to right, those are all rice fields, and they're not being cultivated. All of this at one point would have been a big rice field. But some of this land is not owned by Beth's family. Some of it, yes, is owned by her uncle, and he has a small sari store down near the school with his wife. Here's the first Gemelina tree, double. Now I'm just going 3 or 4 miles an hour, okay? So it's not any death-defying feat. Turn left at the Gemelina tree. Now there was some ploughing down there. That was done by Julio. Julio is a terrific guy, very loyal worker for us, a helper. We built that little house that he has there, and he does farming work when he doesn't have the building work with us, or maybe it's the other way round, not quite sure. This is the new road that my brother-in-law Rado forged this road with his carabao, and then when we had the grader come in, the grader came in and followed Rado's lead. Now it's necessary for me now, I think, to shift into slightly higher. Sorry about that. Hope didn't make anybody sick, but I should get some sticky tape so that I can sorry about that. Now the weather is warmer today, and so it's amazing how quickly the road, it does dry out, except for these deep patches here which take a lot of time. And there are some places like this where the drainage, for some reason, can mix with a heavy clay, won't allow the water to drain off. And occasionally you'll find that someone has dug a trench left to right or right to left, and that has helped with the drainage. Our friend and neighbour Oping will help us do this. When we came and we did some of the work by hand, Oping came out and helped. A good neighbour and a good friend. And now we're going through the palm plantation. Palm plantation we've showed many times. Now, the palm plantation can be a good source of income, but it needs to be husbanded. and as you can see, all of those lifeless grey branches that are hanging down, all of that, I think, I'm a city boy, don't forget, but that looks as if it should be cut away and allow the tree to breathe. Here they've cut it away because it's right next to the road, so it's quite possible that that part was cut away by Manorado. In fact, I've done it myself on occasion. I keep a bolo under the back seat. Now that used to be the road. That was the road, and boy, I've seen Oping stuck there and we've had trouble ourselves. But this one, another one by our hero, Manorado, came and forged this road, found a way round, and then when we had the grader come in, we had it done properly. So if you look at that tree there, look, see, most of it is dead on there, but the tree itself is growing up and above it. Now the trees are well laid out, spaced out nicely. If you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5, and then an avenue with nothing in it, and then on the other side another 5 or 6 or maybe 7 trees. And we come up again, and you can see this, they're not random, they are laid out. This is a proper plantation. And I've taken my eyes off the road, and I shouldn't have. Where's my... What I've got is a handkerchief on the dash, and I've just got the, the camera just sitting up there, okay? Yeah, I know it's not highly professional stuff. Now this is the first glimpse of Cebu. I don't know how well you can see that, but that thin dark line right on the top of the horizon, that's Cebu. And later we'll be actually able to see Cebu City. And at night when we're coming home, we can see Cebu City lights. Wow, that's a great thrill, isn't it? This road at one time would have been forged by the owner of what Beth calls a hacienda, a huge acreage of land, or hectares as they refer to them here. And this road would have been to provide access to his plantation. And then I believe he donated it. He donated it to the city. I'm not sure now whether I'm quoting the law, but I was told by another expat who was having difficulty accessing his land because it passed over somebody else's, and he said that his investigation told him that the law was that you couldn't forbid somebody access, you couldn't prevent somebody access to their land. So these are easements, aren't they? In England they would call this an easement, and that is the goodwill permission for someone to pass over your land. Now thanks to my suicide knob, I think they're called, or knuckle breakers, I'm able to go along. We are just doing a few miles an hour. We're in four-wheel drive. I'm not taking it steady because I have the camera in hand. I'm taking it steady because that's the driving requirement to get safely along this road. You just cannot take it for granted. You know, maybe this part might be taken for granted, but it's so easy. This is the new part of the road that was taken by the grader. Over there, maybe you can see, that's the old road. Used to go a different way. We've been stuck on that part, and now for some reason this has become an impending problem, I think. Now that little house there is what we call the secret house. I've told this story many times, but because there are so many new subscribers, I should just briefly recount it. That house, the people, the family that had that has that house, has a house over there. Now, whether you can see that, maybe I should risk another frantic zoom, and that should show you a little house nestling in among the trees there. And that's the house that they used to live in. So for some reason, political or relations, or for some reason family, they had to move, and they were able to move to this place here. I better get back off the zoom. No, that's taking it the wrong way. Just remember that I can't see the viewfinder. But back along there is the little house. Now that little house was sitting there as a skeleton for a long time, and it became obvious that the family just could not afford, to, well, maybe it was, no, they couldn't afford to do what was necessary. So we decided that, and this is why it's called a secret house, we decided that it would be fun to be able to go in and in one day take in the Superman team, bring all the materials up on the truck, and just go in there and clad the house. And then when we'd clad the house, there's their little house over there, look. That's a real traditional Nipa hut. And over there you can see a little bit more about the sea that is between us and Cebu. And Cebu is the darkest line right above. But here you can see, look, over there under the trees, you can see how we are really in the middle of hundreds of miles of rolling hills. But of course, because the altitude is such, I think there's a ruling geographically, or in some way there's some kind of a ruling that if something is at a higher altitude, it can be called a mountain. So we consider ourselves in the mountains. Here's somebody now coming. Now this is a familiar scene. A man with his child on the front. In fact, that's the man that has the secret house. Well, the story of the secret house is that we decided that we would come in, we would swoop in early in the morning because they were not able to live there. We would clad the house and swoop out, and he would eventually, of course, he would find out that it was us and say thank you, and that would be good enough. But we would do that just for as benign tricksters. Could we call ourselves that? Benign tricksters. And we would do that, and we were about to do it, and then isn't it always the way, they managed to find enough money to clad some of the house. So we had already told this story, and people agreed to fund the rest of the house. So we were able to go in, and we sent a team in. The man worked with us, that man you've just seen on the motorcycle. He worked with us, and we finished the house. But it's still called the secret house. And the man and his wife lived there, and their children. One of them became the favorite with us, Christine. and she used to come into church. Apparently they're going to a different church somewhere else now, so we don't actually see much of them. Just one of those changes that happens. Now there's a good view of rolling hills. And over there you've got, well, you've got the secret village in the mountains is up on that high ground. And you've got Philip and Annabeth's house. And you've got the house of Tom. Tom is a Filipino, but he has been in America, but he's come back and it's as if he's American. But he looks Filipino, but he speaks immaculate English with an American accent, if that's not a contradiction of terms. Now the problem with driving this road is that it's so very easy if you choose too close, if you go too close to one edge and you have no margin of error, and if you go close to that edge, as you can see there, that the cars have gone very close. If there is any side slip, there's any mistake at all, any side slip, and you can have a wheel over the edge and the whole truck will follow very quickly. So I've got a fly. So you need to be able to not go near those edges, and you need to know which side of the road to go. So now we've got a star performance. Okay, back again. See, we're just in first gear. Now here we really can't afford to have side slip, and it seems like you have either one of the two extremes. Either you have an over the edge thing that can happen, or you have coming up against, say, 2 feet or maybe 3 feet of bank, and it's very easy to drift off into that ditch, as you can see somebody has. In fact, it might have been me. Now, for those who are castigating me, there's a word for you, who are castigating me for being strict with Beth, let me tell you something. I come from a background of having teachers. I believe in having teachers. I've never met a sloppy, lax teacher yet. I've always had teachers who, if I didn't do my work, boy, I would be beaten up, I tell you. Not physically, but they would give me a dressing down that I wouldn't forget. I remember going to the Australian vocal coach, who was very well known, actually wrote a book, The Singer and the Voice, and I was fortunate enough to go to him, and we became friends, and he was very, very kind to me, and used to, instead of his usual where he would give an hour lesson, he would allow me to split the cost and have 2 half-hour lessons, and I learned such a lot. But when I first started with him, I went there and I didn't I didn't have anything prepared. Oh, Arnold Rose was a roaring lion if you didn't do your work, and you were there and you were wasting his time, so he didn't take it lightly. So that and other teachers for the trombone. I've had various teachers. I actually went for some cello lessons in Florida, and I went to a Chinese teacher of the cello, and she, sitting later after the lesson, she confided in me that she was very, very strict with American kids who came to her for lessons, and she cited the example of one particular young teenager who came, and she was dressed sloppy like some American kids, well, some teenagers can do. And the girl came to her, and my teacher, her teacher, took this as a great gesture of disrespect, and told the girl, "You are slovenly in your dress, and you will be slovenly in your lessons. If you come to me looking like that again, I will not teach you." See, it wasn't about money, it was about teaching the art of the cello. The girl never came like that again, was always smartly dressed, and we would hope that she had learned a valuable lesson. Now, I've taught other people to drive, and I admit I'm certainly strict at the very least, and perhaps tyrannical at the worst. But I believe that when you teach someone to drive, you are putting them in control of a lethal weapon that can kill. And I believe that people should be taught strict, and I believe we're not talking about patience now, we're talking about demanding attention, focus, and remembering your lessons. This is the very least that you should do. And if you don't focus enough to be able to remember what you have been told, then you are not focusing enough to drive. I taught someone who considered, like a lot of you subscribers, that I was being too strict. And at one point she stopped the car in the middle of the road, a side street admittedly, and she got out and she walked home. Now after that she arranged to have private lessons through a school, and she had about 3 or 4 lessons with that school, and then she came back and she asked me would I teach her again. Well, of course I was not surprised. I was about to do the tactful thing there and say I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised, because I know that a professional teacher, while some of them are excellent, there are those who are quite happy if you do not focus. They are quite happy to stretch the lessons out until such times as you do focus and start to take in the lessons. Well, she realized that her teacher didn't care, and she said, "I realize now that you are very strict, and that because of that I can hope to be a very good driver." And folks, that's what I want for my wife. I want that for Beth. I don't want to turn her loose on this road that you have been traveling with me on for the last 10 minutes. I don't want to turn her loose on that road and be called out when she does it alone because she's upside down in a rice field. Okay? So, I ask your understanding, if not your tolerance, for the way that I choose to be strict with teachers in the same way that I have had teachers be strict with me. I've shared that story of when I was at college in the army, and my professor, Bill Teskey, I asked him to teach me something. I asked him to teach me something, thereby admitting that in fact I was teaching him to teach me. And he wearily put down his pencil and he said, "Listen to me. If you open your trombone case and you take out your instrument and do not do what I have taught you to do, you are wasting your time." And that's how I view driving lessons. If you're going to sit there and tell me that you know better than me, then you should go somewhere else or focus. It's very simple. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. We're at the road now, so I'm on my way, and actually because I've been talking, I'm pointing in the wrong direction because I should be going down to Taffy. Okay, bye for now.